Hello and welcome to another episode of Words with Myself.
Presence is something that frequently comes up. I think we all know by now that it is important to be in the present moment, to not be in the future and not be in the past, because anxiety is bred from living in the past and depression is bred through living in the future. So we want to be present in our lives, to be intentional with how we spend our time, and to not take for granted our life expectancy, to not feel like we have endless amounts of time, because we don't know that. We don't know when our lives will end. But the problem with presence is a lack of context on how to implement it. A lot of people know that it's important to be present, but they don't truly know what that means. It could mean sitting in a field and listening to the birds and looking at the clouds in the sky. That's one form of presence. You are present in that moment, observing, listening, looking, hearing, using those senses, and using your senses as a way to ground yourself in the present moment. But on a broader scale, I think what is more misunderstood about presence is that it's about an undoing of habits and patterns, undoing default behaviors, ways that you act and do in life that you wouldn't choose to do if you were starting fresh. If you really thought about it and thought, what do I want to accomplish and how will I accomplish that? That misalignment of your actions is where the misunderstanding comes in. Because to be present is really to be acting consciously and intentionally, to be doing things deliberately, to not let the day slip by, to not just go through life waiting for things to come to us, expecting something to change. Being present isn't doing nothing or a lack of doing. It's actually just being conscious about what you're doing or about what you're not doing, about what you're putting off. Because there can also be a lack of presence when your knowledge, when what you know to be true is out of alignment with how you act. There needs to be some form of cognitive dissonance or dissociation in order for you to allow yourself to continue acting in a way that you know is out of alignment. Otherwise, you would sit there thinking, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? I know that I shouldn't be doing this, or I know I should be doing this. Why am I not doing this? This is ridiculous. But we don't. And there's a reason for it, because there is safety and comfort in what is familiar. And change is not familiar. We don't know what it's like to live that different experience, to live that integrated life. So even though we know that it's good for us, or we know that we want to do something, we still choose to sit with comfort, to stay where it's safe. And I'm sure you'll be able to be your own example of this. If you truly sit there and ask yourself, what am I doing that I know that I shouldn't be? And what am I not doing that I know that I should be? If you really sit with those questions, if you try to find the answers within yourself, you will get a long list of things that you should and should not do, that you know you should do, and you know you shouldn't do. So the question is, why are you not? And what is this stopping you from doing? Well, how can I be present if I'm not doing all of these things that I already know that I should be doing, and I am doing all of these things that I know that I shouldn't be doing? If I was in the present moment, how could I make those choices? How could I allow myself to function in that way? It wouldn't make sense. So the ego knows that in order for it to preserve itself, it must maintain this state of delusion and this state of lack of presence and awareness. We must be distracted, dissociated, because if we're not, we have to think about all those things that we don't want to do. We might start questioning why we're doing what we're doing, and why the ego is making us do these things. And then we'll want to get rid of the ego. And the ego's job is to survive, is to build up this identity and preserve it. So when you've told yourself that you do these things because you're this kind of person, or you identify with these beliefs, you are affirming and conditioning your ego into a state of permanence. And this means you will value your identity over what is factually true. You will prefer the image of yourself rather than what is actually true by your actions. And I'm sure you can say this is most people. We all want to believe we're that much better than we actually are, that we're that much nicer and kinder. And we try to align our actions towards this image of ourselves, this higher being, this role model that we've created of ourselves. And thus we have lost the present moment. Because we are living in the future. We are living towards an idealized self that exists after we've done something or after we've become something. We're thinking of ourselves after the process is complete, like this ideal goal, which is the end product. But that is not where you are and who you are currently. That is something abstract. And for a lot of people, they don't care if they get there, as long as they can believe that that is possible and that is part of them. But this is where people lose themselves, because they get lost between this idea of who they are, the standards of which can be quite anxiety-inducing, because they almost know that they will never live up to these standards, or they know that where they are at is nothing like this image they have of themselves. Somewhere deep down, you know the true you, the real you, and you know where you are in life, the decisions that you make, the reasonings behind everything, the things you're afraid of, the things that you get wrong. All of this stuff you know inside you, whether you admit it to yourself or not. You know what your deepest fears are. You know what your deepest passions are. But some of us have built these walls, these internal structures so well that we have become detached, and we're not really sure of ourselves. We have lost ourselves to the image or the ideal, and we can't quite put our finger on what is real and what is not. So the only way to kind of come back from this is to be present. And what does presence require? Truth. That is the true state of presence, is truth. It is what is. So it isn't about you will do this or you could do this. It's nothing to do with potential. It's nothing to do with ideals or dreams or goals. It's to do with who you are right now. The decisions that you're making, the patterns that you have, the habits that you have, the things that you do on a daily basis that you might not even be aware of. But if you imagine that you paid a video team to follow you all around your days, and after this period of a week or a month of filming you, that footage would get released. And what would you think? Would you be anxious about that? Would you be ashamed? Would you be upset? Would you be horrified? What is it about the things that you do and the way you choose to live your life that you wouldn't be happy about? What is it that when you were watching that footage back, you would be thinking, I don't know why I do that, or I really should be doing this? What is it about seeing your life from a third party would wake you up to what actually is? Not your intentions or your ideas or your idealized self, but instead the truth, the clear truth from an unbiased point of view. What do you do? What patterns can you notice about yourself? How do you act, and are you proud of how you act? Are you ashamed of how you act? Is there things that you think you could improve on? Is there things that you notice that you frequently get wrong? Or are you making the same mistakes over and over? Are you investing too much time where you shouldn't be? Are you getting into arguments that don't really matter? What are you doing that you know you shouldn't be? Or what aren't you doing that you know you should be? Once you can answer that, once you can strip away these abstract ideas of self, once you can strip away identity and ego and step into the present moment and see yourself as who you are, not who you want to be, but who you are, you can then take the steps to align yourself with your beliefs, with your ideas. You can accept who you are and where you're at today and still want to do better, want to make a conscious effort towards being more present, being more loving, being more understanding, but without the delusion, without the identity. We can live our lives like audio recordings, where most people think they sound a certain way because that's how they've heard themselves their entire life. But when they hear a recording of themselves, they don't like it. They go, well, that's not how I speak. But then everyone around them agrees. They go, that is how you speak. That's how you sound. And people will swear blindly that that's not how they sound and that the recording's odd. But it is just because their idea of what they sound like in their head doesn't match up with what the recording of their actual voice represents. And this is the same with your identity. This is the same with your ego. You want to believe that you are a certain person. You want to believe that you act a certain way. But when you see a recording of yourself, or when you take a third-party perspective and analyze yourself, you will see that what you think and what you believe doesn't really align with what actually is. And that's okay. It's okay for us to not be exactly where we want to be. But at least with an honest account for where we are and who we are, you can actually take steps to improve yourself. You can actually take steps to align yourself with what you believe, rather than believing that you're already doing it, rather than lying to yourself or being anxious or being depressed or living in the past or living in the future. You can be here and now, aware of who you are and what you're doing, and you can take steps to become who you want to be and where you want to go. Thank you for listening.